What the hell was that?
That was a borderline bottle episode.
It was good still. It wasn't a bad episode at all.
I had a big emotional responses throughout it that Stephen had to deal with.
I wish we had a reaction.
As soon as the thing happened, I was like, Sarah's going to hate this.
Oh, yeah. It was like almost season 8 Game of Thrones vibes from, of me,
We know it's kind of a standalone. We don't get an intro sequence, no music, nothing, just title, move on.
You know it's going to be a weird one. But they still do the plot stuff. You still get everything that you expect to get. It just kind of all happens in the last 20 minutes.
Definitely end heavy.
And it's semi-incongruent with the rest of the season. It took me 10 minutes to realize the last thing we saw was Mark reintegrating.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so this isn't Mark, or this is all in his head?
Which is intentional, because we do get the reveal later on that, oh, no, he is.
Yeah, as soon as they start going off with the other characters, you're like, okay, we are actually in real life.
And I think that's meant to say that the reintegration is a slow transition, that maybe that is still mainly innie Mark still.
Yeah.
So maybe this is part of the process that you still have to go in and go through the process, maybe.
It's definitely not what we expected. Audi Mark went to work still, or agreed to a Ortbo. It was like, this is fine.
They would have agreed to it because it's 2 days.
Yeah. If this was one episode earlier, it would be very different.
And if this is genuinely outside and not just some weird part of the
simulation.
lower wings.
Out fucking side! Oh my god, I mean, I knew there was no actual ceiling, but this is fucking insane!
It probably is the outside. It's just on the edge of town, I guess.
Well, I just assume they own all this land. That's why no one's there, and that's why they aren't being observed much.
National Park.
Yes, we see 1 or 2 birds, but we don't see any other kind of wildlife.
Oh, there was a creepy shot with a bird just behind Helly in one of the shots.
Yeah.
Just for no reason. I'm like, it's like
exactly.
bird scare.
It made me wonder. Yeah, there was just this one bit. I was like, is that on purpose?
Yeah, it was a completely static shot of Helly, and then just this branch behind her goes, blah!
We've seen with the waffle party stuff that they have rebuilt whole houses and done landscaping.
The sky.
They could...
Yeah, they probably are outside.
Could be an
I knew
open
there wasn't
air
a ceiling,
area.
but this is crazy. I just thought all in Mark's head for the first almost half an hour.
Even though it
honestly.
started on Irving, you were like Mark's head.
Yeah. Because what the hell?
Yeah.
Seeing Mark on the cliff, I was like, that's not going to be Mark. That's Irving's gone through this weird other trial that's happening. But I was like, Irving episode? Loving it. Keen, because we're starting on Irving. It's probably going to be an Irving episode.
Yeah, we start and end on the ding, because it opens on him dinging in.
Yeah, he does have the most character progression, so you could call it an Irving episode anyway.
You could almost call last episode a Dylan episode in a way. We're getting
he had the most
focused
character.
Characters.
No one stands still per episode, which is always nice.
Yes.
But we'll dive into the episode. We open on Irving. He's in the middle of a frozen lake, which is the first okay, what are we doing?
Again, there's a body of water, but this time frozen. So hey,
That's cracking.
different.
So Audi Irving would have been dropped off or agreed to go out there.
Hey, can you just walk halfway through for us? It's fine. It's totally stable.
It happens at the end too, but that was my main confusion.
Yeah,
I'm
'cause he
like,
would have
why would
turned
they agree?
around.
And then I remembered Mark was reintegrated. I'm like, so Audi Mark, even if reintegration is slow, he still thinks, oh, I've just reintegrated. Weird shit's gonna start happening. Yeah, sure, I'll go upstate.
Yeah, because the Audis need to get there.
Because we don't know that they can just turn them off. We only know that they can swap them between.
Yeah, because I assume that that's what happened with Irving. They would just turned him off.
I don't.
And
They've never shown they have.
Or else the Audi would just turn around and said, "Who? What's going on? Who are you lot?"
When they say walk into the woods, I thought he would be deep enough into the woods and he'd go like, oh, I guess it's over. Because last I remembered I walked into this frozen lake.
And then
a team of...
Well, Seth appears going, Irving.
Come on. Let's go.
Yeah.
Good. You did good today. It was a great experience. By the
So
way,
great
you're fired.
that you decided to retire or something, yeah.
You've realized your love for the outdoors and you want to go camping.
A lot of people are very fascinated by Irving and think he's like some secret reintegration, but I don't go in on that because I think the doctor has been pretty clear on, I've only done PD and I am doing you.
Yeah, your theories are batshit. You're all weird.
I've been sending her some funny milkshake memes.
It's like the new Drake
Yeah, with milkshake, and then he's drinking his milkshake for the ones he likes. People put it in, so it's very good.
You'll have to send.
yes, I understand why people would think Irving's reintegrated, but we see in season 1 how much he sets up not sleeping and trying to send these internal messages by having this lucidity.
And in any, Irving goes on a very clear arc of being absolutely devout to the whole thing, to then because of he falls in love with Bert and all that, and then he puts the egg in the Bible equivalent book. With Irving, it's that his Audi has been obviously working against Lumen. It might be something to do with his dad, since we see his dad's war stuff.
Or at least his very sus on them.
Yes. Last season, Irving, like, when he dozes off, he has the dreams. But they don't want the innies to sleep, because when they sleep, that's when, like, memories merge, maybe, from an innie's perspective. Because all Irving's been doing, maybe on the outside, is trying to tell his guy that she's an Egan, because assumingly he would have saw this. Helena Egan has released this documentary and you're the star in it as well.
Right.
So he would have been maybe trying to communicate. So when he goes to sleep, wakes up, sees the bride that represents Helena, whatever the fuck her name is, and that's when he wakes up and
Does
goes,
it represent
she's
Helena?
definitely... Well...
That's not how I took it. I just thought it was a weird campfire story.
Yeah, well, the campfire story about her ancestor. And
I thought it was just meant to be like the omen, like the bad omen. What we think is going to happen because, you know, is someone going to die? Is one of the two of them going to die at this waterfall now? Because the last time we saw that was when one of the twins died.
Yeah, more foreshadowing than anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, so wakes up on the frozen lake, and then Mark calls him to walk up the lake, and then the next 10-15 minutes is them walking through the forest.
They all unite. We've got all four there up on the cliff.
Yes, when Irving first meets Helena, she pops out of nowhere. And he's
Yeah.
immediately like, where'd you come from?
Yeah.
Oh, halfway up the fucking mountain already?
That's not where I
Convenient
appeared.
for you,
Why are
buddy.
you different?
And somebody pointed out that the tune the TV's playing is the same song that Miss Cobell was singing in season 1 when she's like, in kid.
Company theme.
Yeah.
But speaking of the video that they come across, Milchick becomes final millennial pause boss.
Yeah, oh
Where
God,
he's
yeah.
like,
It's immediately creepy.
And-
Like,
Yeah,
this
like
is
the
basically
effect
the
they
horror
put on
episode.
him, like it almost like
Yeah, well,
look
cutting in
different.
randomly when he says stuff. This is the horror episode, and they try to stick with it.
yeah, for sure.
It's tense pretty much the whole time, even though a lot of it is just walking.
you're waiting for something to go wrong.
Yeah.
They do a better job at what old Doctor Who tried with the fucking woman in the distance doing weird shit.
Oh, 73
Yeah,
yards.
which I feel like was meant to be taken from that whole viral, was it like Serbian lady dancing in
Yeah.
the street? Like, do you remember that whole like curse? If you see the Serbian lady dancing.
No idea what that is.
So
Just
when
a
you've
silly
seen
tale
the
that you come up
distance doing it like a natural but seemingly unnatural movement, and I thought that the way they shot it, that we were like, it's definitely Mark, but when we do get a look at them, their faces are distorted.
That's why I thought we were in his head, because they're the CGI characters from the intro. Like, they're literally
Right.
they're taken exactly from that.
But how does Milchick explain them away?
Kia's twin was always with him, so we've done the same for you.
That's just the
And-
casual.
Yeah, and that Mark, I assume, is the Mark that was in the background in episode 1, which again just raises more questions, which is why I thought we were in his head, because why are there weird CGI creatures in the real world? And how do we explain that? And if you're telling me it's not clones,
Well, they're not in-world meant to be CG. They're meant to just be these weird amalgamation people things.
I guess they probably could have made them more photoreal if they wanted
But they
to.
don't want. They want to unnerve
yeah, they
you.
wanted Uncanny Valley, right? So they blur the faces.
But they want you to lean in and go, what? And try and make sense of it.
Yeah, maybe it's just projector life of like everything's so visible.
I feel like we're seeing the descendant from the car wash, like floppy guys, because they're just there to
the
point.
wacky waving
And this is-
inflatable arm tube man.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
now
the
we're
way they
seeing
move, and you
the
hated it.
technology enhanced version where they're just inflated.
They're full CG and they've just edited them so creepily. But it just makes no real sense. And then you're saying it's not clones, and it's like, this is a clone of a person. It's not a very good clone.
I guess it's just meant to be supplementary for right now, and it's probably not going to have any other bearing to the
to freak
major
you out.
plot line.
It has to. What? You can't just introduce real world intro people and then not explain that at some point.
You're saying
a
real
simulation,
world
bro.
CGI people, but they're not saying, like, Milchick isn't coming and going, oh, computer generated twins of you. He's
But
not
what
said
would
that.
it be in real? What would it be
Just
in their
weird,
world?
fucking weird human. It's going to be
Robot?
explained.
Which means they've grown them or made
Like,
them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
This
but-
isn't House of the Dragon with weird holes. I trust that Dan Erickson and
Well,
Ben
that's what I'm
Stiller
saying. They
will
have to
explain
do
this.
something with it.
If mum and dad told us that the clones aren't real, then there's no clones.
They would never lie.
I'm not sure I need it. I know maybe that's just
You
me,
do
my
need
preference.
it. You can't. You
I know, I
can't
think it's just
be
a
in random-
weird, odd episode, and that's just one of the elements.
I don't think this can go unexplained.
As you pointed out, we see that weird thing behind Mark in the first episode.
Yeah,
It's
so
just
they've
twice
used it elsewhere, so it
Yeah.
has to do something.
True.
Everything in the world makes sense. Whether it's explained or not, everything makes sense. So these creatures have to make sense within the world. The world building is good in this show. They're not just going to randomly bring in a random fucking creature I think they have to do something with it, especially since they did it in episode 1. And because Dan Erickson in the interview does say, like, oh, pay attention. Like, oh.
I think it's them going, here's your fucking clowns anyway.
I wouldn't like it if that's what
Time
that
will
is.
tell. I'm not stressing about it yet.
I don't need, like, an explanation so much as just, like, it still needs to make sense within the world, which is why it's just strange for now. But I'm very curious. It definitely points towards clones and that maybe they're not very good at it, or they are actual, like, maybe that was a perfect Mark clone, but because they wanted to make us feel weird.
How do they even, like, get around? Like, are they? Because they're just sort of
And
there.
they disappear between
That's it, like, they're meant
scenes.
to be weirdly mysterious.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't see them like walk up to them and then turn.
Yeah,
Like, they
they
always
just appear.
I'm not going to go as far to say they're like in a simulation or anything. I think they are physically somewhere.
I'm not expecting them to explain it. I
No.
do think the point of them being included was to start setting the tone for this horror that comes up towards the end with the weird half lady. What do they call her? They called her a small woman.
Oh, the
the
bride
bride?
or whatever.
Yeah.
The way the Tempers greet himself, it's very Christmas Carol.
Yeah, which is why I took it as a camp story that was just kind of like meant to, I don't know why they want to unnerve them, but it's meant to be creepy. Maybe give fake Helena something to like laugh at that she had pre-planned.
We'll get into that.
He turned into the forest because he masturbated.
We didn't even mention we're in this forest. It has a name. Did we say Dita Egan National Forest yet?
They do point out in the episode that Dita is this is the first time we've talked about Dita.
Yeah.
Because Milkchick is like,
Dieter Egan National Forest.
Who the fuck is Dieter Egan?
Dieter Egan? Some of you may be quietly yearning to learn more.
that's Dylan in this for most of this episode. It's just he's the audience surrogate. Every time something
Yeah.
weird happens, he's like, what the fuck? And everyone's like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Cool, we're keeping it real.
He kind of takes the backseat this one. We get a reminder that he's still kind of a company man because he wants to keep seeing his kids and his wife. But he's more taking the back step.
One of the weird moments with Dylan while they're on their walk, when they start to get a little frustrated at each other, Mark says to Irving, I know you had a bad experience out there. And then he says, Dylan, what the fuck did you say? And then Dylan says, fucking nothing.
We all know you had a bad experience last time you were outside.
Who said I had a bad experience? What did you tell him, dumbass? Nothing. What the fuck?
Which is again why I'm like, are we in Mark's head? Because Mark doesn't know about that unless Dylan did say something. But Dylan wouldn't have said something. So how does Mark know?
Is it reintegration Mark and he found
Audi Mark doesn't know anything.
maybe he
Audi Mark
did?
has no other information.
Maybe he's seen Irving on the outside and we've missed that. I don't know.
I guess we've done little time skips before.
knows?
Like next episode might explain it.
Yeah.
But that's just another little weird moment that people need to pay attention to probably. Because that's on purpose.
Unless it's just Mark being intuitive to Irving being different now, you know, slightly sadder or something.
It's something to pay attention to.
What the
So we get the weird, like Irving reading it while, like, I couldn't tell if it was Ben
Stiller or
Stiller
not.
still doing it
Yeah.
or not, because Ben Stiller did the voice for Keir and other things. His brother, who definitely wasn't him, it's definitely this made up. I mean,
We all have two wolves inside of us, right?
I think it's. I think this is the what's it called? The seed for Severance. Like, oh, that wasn't me. That was my separate self who wanked off in the woods. Like,
Did you catch that when he said he spilled his lineage?
Yeah, so that was the thing. Immediately, because we're being told Dita's this twin brother or whatever.
Yes.
And we're being super sexual with the forest. I'm like,
And Dita was always with him.
I thought initially it was incest that they were talking about. Like, I didn't think it was solo. I was like, oh, because we're in a weird religious thing and there's incest. It's always the way. It always ends to incest.
I thought it was going to be that, like, his brother was a stillborn, so he feels like he absorbed his brother, which could
Ate
sometimes
him
happen.
for survival purposes or something.
So then that's where the severance thing comes from. I always feel like there's two of me in me.
Is this a sequel to Malignant?
You can't trust anything that Lumen says, because they're saying that his brother literally became part with the forest, like he turned into the forest.
Because he masturbated.
Like a biblical story.
Ooh,
like
yeah.
it feels like right out of that.
I didn't get, like you didn't get that it was a masturbation thing. I thought maybe it was an incest thing. Only when Helly takes the piss out of it at the end, where she goes, oh, the twin brother died because Keir wanked off. And I'm like, so who was the one that did the wanking? I'm so confused.
Yeah, I agree with Stephen. I reckon it is a two-wolf scenario where, like, a weak him and a strong him went into the forest and only the strong one survived because he mastered the temperaments.
So I love so much about this show because I think with that simple concept of, oh, I'd love to just skip work. Like, I'd love to drive in, drive out. Then he's clearly has made this a part of, like, this weird religious thing. Like, it's getting weirder and weirder. It's not just we've got company secrets, would rather not get out, so we're going to sever you. There's like 8 layers to all this, you know?
I was looking at him when his eye came out. It popped from the socket, driven by a sudden torrent of pus.
His eyeball popped out and pus was pushing it out. Yuck.
His eyeball just exploded out of nowhere. And I'm like, oh, he got shot in the forest? But then nothing. So no, that's what makes me think it's very metaphorical. It's heavily steeped. And you're just like, okay.
Sorry, got that dog in me, you know?
I got them 2 wolves in me.
Irving questions it, but obviously the best bit where it's like, oh, this is the biggest waterfall. Season 1, episode 1, 2, Irving would be like, whoa. That version of Irving would be nerding out over this whole trip.
Yeah.
The idea that he gets to walk the path of Keir.
But he's so onto Helena and so suspicious of everything.
We both think, don't we, that we think that Irving has been a part of this company for maybe decades and has been rewrote. And Audi Irving has no clue about it, but he obviously dreams about the door.
If you can make a person, why can't you reset that person? Like, whether it's a new chip or whether you just say, hey, chip, wipe what you've saved. Yeah, clear cache. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I think he has to have been there for ages, and that's the flaw. The last thing he sees every time was that elevator.
So when he asked Mr. Milchick that really happened, and he's like, yeah, confirmed.
Everything here says is truth.
Yeah.
Which is the Bible is true.
But before that scene, we get a fantastic bit of acting and quite scary, like freaky bit where heavily suspecting that Helly's not Helly. But he looks to her and gives her one chance privately. Come on, just tell us what it was. Like, be honest with me. And then he doesn't buy it, and then she, for a split second, the face drops, and she looks at him.
She uses her raspy voice.
Yeah, like the voice.
Although when she does her outburst during Milchick's story, where she starts teasing him,
hard.
It's pre-planned. It must be, because she knows exactly what's going to happen. But for that moment, again, you're like, oh, is she Helly? But then because of that moment, you're like, okay, which means it must be pre-planned.
By pre-planned, do you mean she sat Milchick down and said, here's what I want you to do so I can rip on you?
To get them on board.
Oh, I thought the story would just be being said anyway, and she just impromptu went, oh, this will be a good opportunity.
I don't think Helena is capable of improvisation.
Yeah, because she's just so used to being
Whether
in control.
Milchick was in on it, I don't know.
Yeah.
But also him responding very angrily to her. If he knows she's Helena, so he would have also had to be like, oh, I need to treat her like this. So yeah, she writer's roomed or something. Like, guys, all right, I need a witty comeback for coming in the forest.
True. Yeah, because then she has that awkward, it would have turned, oh no, he says it would have turned into a carrot, and she's like well over the joke and feels bad about it later on.
Well, she has no response because she hasn't workshopped that.
Yeah, true enough.
I feel like we're not taking enough time to say how terrifying she was, though, with Irving, because
the way they shot it too.
Like, she does a full mum voice, like, Irving. And that face drop.
It's a mask drop.
People commented about how good the performances are and the subtleties of their facial expressions, and her whole facial muscles moving made me want to vomit. And I was like, I'm so glad this episode is vindicating me for fucking hating her.
Speaking of things that make Sarah want to vomit, the bang scene, the sex scene.
No!
The rough and tumble rolling.
Well, he gets called out for it because they have a very intense argument at the campsite. Yeah. Like, you're making goo eyes at her.
You're using your pupils to make love to her while your wife rots.
Oh, I loved him at the start when he says, I wouldn't trust anything that man says, even televisually.
Televisually.
They get really intense, arguing, but then doesn't he just go, oh, you're just fucked off because Bert's gone or something?
Helly does.
Helly says it, and that's what.
Oh, because he says, she never was cruel.
Yeah. Which is I think that's the final nail in the coffin. Which is what we said earlier, how we're like, oh, she was never really close and warm with Irving, which I guess so, but also they've both just had overtime contingency. She might have changed a little bit, but she would never be cruel. She could care more about me because she knows about Bert and maybe she's trying, but no. Cruel? Nah, not allowed.
Any Helly was always us four versus them.
Yes.
And now she's coming in and really dividing up, but also
she's trying to divide all of them up in a way, isn't she?
I think she's doing some really master manipulator stuff of doing things publicly in front of the four to make Mark more vulnerable to what she says, susceptible to what she says, if that makes sense. You know, she has all these private moments with Irving and stuff that she can now turn around and be like, Mark, why would you believe that I did that? Because you saw me around the campfire. I was just saying my little silly stories again and having a good
Southern
fun.
Temptress?
Because I hate her.
I was there going when the sex scene was happening. For me, because I don't hate it as much as you, but it's not as bad as this, but I was looking at it almost like I was looking at the infamous Last of Us 2 boat sex scene.
Thankfully, I didn't finish the game because it was so bad.
You stopped at that scene, I'm pretty sure. You were like, I'm done. Point is that they're just.
You don't like sex.
No, it's just we don't.
Amen.
We just we don't. Like, it's for both of us, since we're both adamant. No, they should just be. We say this a lot. With most shows, we wish you could sometimes just have male and female friends, and just because the lead male and the lead woman happen to be that, it doesn't mean they have to get together.
In this, it's more forgivable for me because they're the first people they've ever seen.
Yeah, and like I know people hate that I dislike their relationship being more than platonic. I understand why they're doing it writing wise. That's fine. I still don't like it. And this episode definitely made me kind of, I guess, align and comprehend my own feelings more, because I'm there going, this is why I utterly despise it and I've hated it this whole season, because we've seen outside Helena now. We see how cruel and horrible she is. So to me, there is no innie-outie split with her.
You don't think she gets redemption?
No, and like seeing her with Mark makes me feel gross. I don't like her. I want to like 10 feet away at all times.
Teddy, this is assault. Like, he thinks he's having sex with someone who he isn't having sex with.
Yes, depending on how you view a severed person. But also, a severed person is an entity owned by Lumen.
Exactly. So from her perspective, and from probably the law's perspective, but from our perspective as characters,
we need to discuss the ethics.
Vice versa, Helena didn't consent to sleeping with reintegrated Mark. Boom.
I reckon it's outie Mark is going for all this weird trip stuff, and the innie Mark is sort of protected from it.
I'm shocked how slow they're choosing to do reintegration. But again, it's a good
I love the
episode.
twist though, because we all thought that this episode would be this weird flashback kind of thing. I was so ready for that, like to have a Mark-esque flashback, revealing things we didn't quite know.
They're teasing us. They're doing a little dance before the orgy.
And there's enough in the episode that you don't feel like it's like they're not bloating it, they're not filling
but
this
it's
out.
so surprising. If you're binging this and you go to the next episode, you think, oh man, a whole and then it's just weird. No, slow down. Here's a whole snowy side quest.
It does feel that way, and I was like halfway through when I felt like we were just getting a lot of let's just really seal the deal with Mark and Helly. That was going to irritate the hell out of me, and I was going to hate this episode. But having the payoff of Irv's suspicion, I'm like, oh, okay, it's worth it. I love this episode. This is great.
A wonderful performance by him.
This is my favorite John Turturro.
I want to give him a hug. I just want to give him a little hug.
He's wonderful.
He's always a good actor, but I think this is the most good I've seen him.
No, he's a great actor.
Even better than Big Lebowski when he's Jesus. I know, it's funny because it is an episode, it builds up to this reveal that I was curious if they thought that we as the audience would go, what? And I imagine there would be maybe a majority of the audience who aren't on Reddit, who aren't looking on their TikTok videos,
who like to just enjoy their media and not ruin it for themselves,
who would have went, what the hell you mean?
I think they were supposed to be closer to what I thought, where it's like I was adamant she was Helena, and then every now and then I'd be like, what are you back and forth a lot more, and like doubting yourself, only to then make the two leads bang, so that then it's an even bigger betrayal when it gets revealed. You're supposed to have noticed just before when Irving is roasting her, and then you're like, oh no, don't bang, like that. I think that's what they were probably going for, but no matter which way you slice it, it's still very effective. Even if you knew the whole time, you still have to watch them bang, and you're like, no. The episode decides to go full horror about the 40-minute mark, where Irving goes on a little side trip quest adventure.
Yes.
He leaves because he's pissed at everyone, which I do really enjoy, because we've never seen everyone angry at each other. And I'm always for interpersonal conflict, because not enough shows are doing it now, because every show is sanitized. And they're like, no, everyone has to be friends.
Half the reason that the new Doctor Who sucks so much.
Exactly. Most of the reason. Like 90% of the
And Dragon Age Valgard, I understand they're all in that game, have to be friendly all
if
the
you want to
time.
hear
Anything
more,
is
go
just
back to
snarky. Go watch this video. He gets this little forest trip, which reminds me of just like early Disney films where they're just like alone in the woods and everything's terrifying and everything's crazy, until he sees MDR just sitting in the wilderness.
With moths. 2 moths, I think, around the screen.
And Bert's there, the bride's there, then he says like...
Bert's creepily there, because he like does the whole...
He sees like he's an Egan or she's an Egan, like he's Egan in the screen, like he sees those words.
I am unsure. Looking at it, I was like, I think it might just be EA11, like...
I definitely felt like they were trying to make patterns of a face or something, but for the most part the numbers changed to have at least more EGs and A's and N's that you think Egan at least.
Yeah, my brain as well read Egan, which I think was kind of the point.
Which I guess, because was it you saying just before that you think that the child bride, intentionally she's sitting in Helly's spot and then the numbers change for Egan so that he can try and maybe make that connection, even if she, the child bride, isn't meant to represent Helly at all.
There's something wrong with the person sitting in this chair.
Yes.
And then she's just next to him. And I'm like, yeah. So it's randomly horror, but that just sparks him being like, yes, okay.
I initially took this like dream sequence, seeing her, because to me, again, she's just representative of death. She's just like a lumen version of a Grim Reaper. So seeing that, I didn't initially take it as a Helly thing. I took it as he's just getting a lot of wacky do stuff and he's out in the forest. He's, I thought, knocking on death's door. Like she's there because he needs to wake himself up, otherwise he's going to die here. That's the way I took it.
He is kind of Egan in that story, right? He's Kia. He walks into the forest and then meets the bride.
Doesn't wank though, so that's why he lives.
Oh.
But
should have thought about Bert.
Wakes up, she comes down to him, right? Like, is she already searching for him or she knows where he is?
Wait, are you talking about when Helly's at the waterfall?
Yeah, when she's there.
They both just end up there.
Yeah.
And she's there probably because she wants to connect with her.
She does have the line during the banging, I didn't like who I was on the outside. She didn't have to say that. So I don't think Helena actually completely likes Helena.
I don't think she likes herself. I think she's
so
there
that's why
because
she's
she
trying
wants...
this as a new life.
That's definitely her emotional motivation, even though she has a outdoor... Oh, I'm just spying on them.
Yes.
It's her actual true...
Yeah, she wants to be in there.
Glasgow was one of the options that Dylan saw when he was setting up the thing.
The protocols.
Because he goes, Glasgow protocol or whatever he says to make her wake up. Glasgow block or something. Yeah. It's crazy how we get invested in these because in this moment, because it is this vindicated, like, I fucking knew it, get her Irv. And for a second I was worried that he was going to get, the classic trips up, hits his head on a fucking brick or something. The classic.
Was panicking for this because, again, my whole thing was thinking that this child bride thing is representing Irv's going to die. Like right. From that point onwards, Irv being so obviously against them and rebellious, I was like, this is it. He's dead this episode and I'm going to bawl my eyes out.
Yeah.
So I expected him to die, for sure.
The way he drags her out there, pineapple dunks her. Like...
pineapple bobbing.
Pineapple bobbing. Absolutely. I didn't even make that connection.
Very clever.
Cute little foreshadowing for this. And his little vitriolic, she goes, do it, Seth. And he went, yes, do it, Seth.
Yeah.
Like that.
Love
anger
it.
on his face that he gives that. And then the moment he... the caring he becomes immediately. The moment she twists, he's like, oh, I'm sorry.
Once it's someone he cares about. Because he's shouting the whole time, she's an Egan, like he's figured it out. And then obviously everyone thinks he's gone crazy because he was being a dick last night and then walked into the forest and then starts to drown one of your people. So yeah, they're all freaking out. Glasgow protocol or whatever. It's interesting that that's built in then. If it does say Glasgow, then that's it's always been an option. So he's drowning her. And then they change her back and she changes. You hear the ding, so it's confirmed that that's the motif.
Yeah.
So when they didn't play it, it was intentional. And then she's just terrified the whole time because last thing she remembers, she's getting
being tackled off stage.
And then she's now drowning
for a
in a lake.
second, she probably thinks she's being tortured. Like, what do you know?
Yeah,
what do you
water
know?
torture immediately.
Yeah.
Which is horrific.
I guess the repercussions for this incident is what's rolling around in my mind. We've now, Milchick's let everyone else in MDR know, or at least hear and see a lot of information that they shouldn't know. Is this next episode now going to be them trying to reset all of them, but it doesn't work with Mark because of his reintegration? I don't know what the ramifications of this are now.
I don't think they can reset Mark because they need him.
Yeah,
I think resetting him would
too dangerous at this point.
And it would take too long. They need to get this done now. They did it over a weekend. So if you reset him, he needs to learn how to MDR all over again, I guess. It's just more work.
He does piece together and he goes, if you're not Helly, then who has the influence to do this? You have to be an Egan.
And yeah, again, we can imply that Irv's been looking at this from his Audie's perspective for maybe years. His innies at least spent 3 years on it.
I think him and his innie and Audi are actually starting to, without any integration, are aligning more than ever. And he says to Dylan, hang in there, which is the poster, which is him probably saying, bring me back that way. You know how to bring me back, just hang in there.
I figured it was just to fight the power. But yeah, it could be if you set me free on the outside.
Because when they fire someone, do they remove the severance chip? Or
No.
do they go, we have to keep it in? Once it's in, it's in.
Because Dylan was fired, didn't get it removed.
True.
Even though it was only over the weekend. If you were going to do it, you would do it the moment you fired them.
Immediately, yeah.
Whereas I would assume it's a not reversible procedure.
Well, and I think that's why it's so hard for like the reintegration stuff, because you can't just pull.
Yeah, I think you have to leave that memory locked away, otherwise you would go crazy and possibly die. Because I don't think Lumen would risk that. It is the weird moment where he doesn't walk very far into the forest and then they switch him back. Could be a dramatic visual thing, just because like seeing them in the background and then having him change.
It's a perfect match to the beginning.
Yeah, because like realistically, you'd think he'd walk into a porta potty or something, and then they'd ding him, and then he'd walk out and be home again. Or
yeah, did you view this as a death? Like in the sense that it felt like the death of a character, like Innie Irving, he's now gone.
I don't think he's gone for good. It's a Marvel death.
Yeah, because we'll see a lot more of this Bert stuff as well, because we still haven't readdressed Bert, like spying on him in episode 1, 2,
stalking him or spying on him. Yeah, it's one of them.
When he's banging on the door, Irving was suddenly at Bert's door, and Bert's like, "What are you doing at my door?"
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that has been skipped over because clearly, because he's still in that moment of banging on the door at the elevator.
Bert and Irv have talked and been like, "Why are you banging my door?" Unless he just gapped it, or he saw him leave and then Bert tracked him down. But yeah, it's one or the other. Milchick is furious with the whole situation. Because, I mean, he tried to kill an employee, but also the CEO's daughter. So both not very cool. If Kia's your god, then the descendant of Kia probably shouldn't be murdered by a random employee.
If Cobell was committing to keeping her job, she would have been rubbing her hands together being like, another promotion for me, thank you.
Yeah.
Seth's fucking up again.
That's why this whole situation's insane. Why did they let this happen?
They call for Mr. Milchick, and he then just I love his run, by the way. It felt so, I don't know, it's probably just me. Just the way he runs feels
Where were
very
him
pretend.
and Miss Wang?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Where did they take the theremin?
When they woke up and they found that Irv and Helly were missing, you could see this tiny white teepee in the background. Like they had a slight different place that they were staying around the corner. Like it looked like they were coming from there. I think they were just separate. I do feel like they were there.
But in terms of observations, like, I mean, there's that part of my brain going, okay, this super rich company that controls everything, and they've got the future CEO, because they work like that here, it's a dynasty situation. They've got her just sleeping in random tents, and there's no, how is there not like constant, but how is there not just like security in the trees or anything like that, just keeping an eye on things?
Because she is in charge, so I can see everything happening as expected because she orchestrated it basically. Maybe she wanted to sleep with Mark and that's why they did the Ortbo. Like maybe this all stemmed from her wanting to smash.
I was going to say it at least feels like it's a Helly idea. Like it's so crazy. It's because she's like, oh, I'm in charge of this place. I can do whatever I want.
She's not the CEO, but she, at the very least, runs that division.
Yeah.
Since she's the heir to be, she gets to manage the original property.
Right.
So then she gets to prepare herself to be the actual CEO because she managed the first location of Kia.
Yeah, it's the biggest responsibility she can have.
So how much of it is, does she even have to explain her motivations to anyone? Going like, oh, I'm doing this because I want to figure out the secrets. Or can she just go, I'm going to do this? And they all go, of course, my lord, or whatever.
I think they just do whatever she says.
Yes,
So if she says, hey guys, I mean, she probably didn't say, hey, I want to bang Mark S. She probably said, we need to do this thing for this reason.
Yes.
I don't know how they convince the Audis. I'm sure next episode there'll be a throwaway line where they're like, that was a weird experience.
Yeah.
But they'll do something with it. But yeah, I think this all stems from her wanting to be alone at night with Mark because you can't really do that in an office.
Although he's the one who enters into her tent and stuff. It's not her pursuing him. We should touch on, because we didn't touch on it last time, but I do subscribe to that.
You subscribe? To Birkenbeard?
Her telling Cobell, we need a reset, then Cobell sees the driver, and then now people think that Cobell recognises that driver as being somebody else, and they reset him, and that's why she darts. I kind of thought there was some legs to that.
There's got to be something going on with him, or some reason.
Because they emphasise so much on the driver, like they do a shot of him. I think
just because he's a creepy dude. Like, I think she was just going in, and then she's like, oh, he's there. Oh, he could definitely take me.
Keep this clip when they reveal.
Yeah, I could be entirely wrong. But it definitely feels like it's a mystery show. People read into everything.
Perhaps he's maybe the employee that works down in the testing lab, and he's the one that does the resetting, and that's why she was like, "Oh, this is."
I vote he's just a driver. Yeah, that just seems too
But we see
Too
how much Seth
superfluous,
has
I
to
guess.
do in his own time. Like, why couldn't the driver also have to be the testing lab?
Like, how many people are actually at this company sometimes? Because you see those people walking around in the opening episode.
We see more people in the lobby. The car park's always full. When they're talking about how good the torches are, Mark says it's so beautiful because he's
They've
looking at
seen
fire for the first time.
Yeah.
And Mrs. Swung, like, incredible, isn't it? Like, she says it almost like she's seeing it for the first time or more recent. Like, she was surprised by fire half an hour ago, which makes me think she might actually be severed.
Yeah, that's
There
an
is something
interesting point.
strange about her, for sure. Obviously, there's but
One of the most fun things in this episode, you get to realize how little they know. They don't know what the sky looks like. They don't know what a
wind
dead
thing.
thing looks like.
yeah. Oh, well, but
They
that
probably don't
whole
even.
thing.
This is their first time feeling cold, probably.
Yeah, I was
Like-
going to say this is the most unrealistic part of the episode because they weren't immediately burning shit that they found in the fire because that's what I'd be doing.
And they came across that weird, like, infected corpse, horse corpse, whatever the fuck
Seal.
that was.
Seal, yeah.
I thought seal. We're in upstate New York, maybe.
My
we don't know.
dumbass was like, an embryonic sac? And then I went, oh, probably a seal. Thinking about where we are, probably a seal.
Irving, the mastermind who figured out who Helly was. We should eat it.
Well, you should. You're survivalist. He thinks Lumen's like dumped him in the forest. Like, he doesn't trust Lumen, so he's like, they probably won't feed us. Like, he's feeding into himself.
If you were to be Dylan in this episode, it would be fucking wild. Like, he's just watching so much stuff happen, being left alone, worried about Irv all night. He probably didn't sleep.
Trying to be a good
Poor
boy
fucking
because he wants to
dude.
see his wife again.
Well, that's it. It's how they're keeping him. It's impossible to say what's going to happen, but I can only assume that reintegration Mark will eventually remember Irving, will go find these people, their outies, and will try to communicate with them what's going on.
Well, he's probably already got their names on a map.
Yeah, and try and get them to reintegrate too, potentially.
True.
But then I feel like that's me going down the traditional writers route where these guys clearly are just going left every time
They
we
can
think
do
they're
whatever
going
they want.
right, you know, like.
Well, yeah, like if he's been fired and he's investigating Lumen, he won't let himself be just fired. Like, even over the weekend.
Even if they're firing, they might just reset him and put him somewhere else.
Entirely possible. Well, that would, I guess, yeah, if they could reset his innie.
Because there's this sad theory that him and Bert have always fallen in love.
Oh, like over
the
and over
years,
and
then they
over?
yeah.
If you think about it, it feels like Irv surely used to belong in O&D because he paints on the outside.
Yeah, and he draws
so,
constantly.
yeah, so maybe there's a reason they don't put him in O&D.
Stop falling in love, damn it.
Overall, it was an episode I expected, but it was certainly one I'm grateful to have watched. It'll definitely go down, no matter how long Severance goes for, it will be.
Fairly notorious.
It's done its job of 2xing how excited you are for the reintegration Mark. Because you're like, what's going to happen next? And then you get nothing to do with that. So it's mad blue balls.
Yeah.
But you still get something good. So they're just edging you.
And I'll double down on your, the Netflix blowout comment that you mentioned. It's once again, it's something big happening still in the first half of this season. Like,
Yeah.
It's so funny that we're on
Yeah.
episode 4 of 10.
And they're all an hour too, so it's not like the Disney Plus stuff of it's 10, but they're all
20
30 minutes
minutes.
and it's
Yeah.
10 minutes of credits, and
Yeah.
it's the proper meaty things.
Again, I was just super confused at the beginning, worried it was going to be a really horrible episode, and this was it. Like, this was the start of the fall.
20-minute mark, I pressed the time button and like, we have half an hour.
It's okay.
Praise Kia. We have faith. Faith
Yeah.
in Kia.
But it ended up being an amazing episode, and I love Irving. He's an awesome character. I'm glad he got his moment in the sun,
And hopefully he returns.
even if it melted his wings, and now he is fallen.
There's no way he's gone.
No,
It's
of
like,
course.
this is the beginning of a
It's-
different journey.
It's such
Yeah.
an amazing progression because the first episode almost starts like a sitcom basis. Like, oh, imagine if you go to work and all your work friends are kooky people and they don't know what they do, and then they just go deeper and deeper.
Yeah.
Where like maybe Irving will have his Gandalf Two Towers moment where he appears. And
Yeah,
they look up
that's
while
exactly
they're
what it is.
struggling.
It's
Yeah.
they've killed him, but we know he's not dead.
Yeah, it'd be like Gandalf, like I have reintegrated Mark. Like I'm no longer Irving the Grey, I'm Irving the White.
That's actually
you know?
entirely possible because, like, if Ragabi's finding people, like a freshly fired Lumen employee that is already investigating them, I'm kind of surprised they haven't crossed paths already.
Which I think is why people thought he had reintegrated already. Because
Yes.
like, why wouldn't these two people cross paths? Because
Yeah.
he knows all these other employees' locations.
Dramatic storytelling, that's why.
His reintegration would be mad though, assuming our theory is correct that he's had like 10 different versions, unless they wipe it
Yes.
clean every time, so maybe not.
Oh,
But,
that
yeah.
could be his death. Like, they try it, and she's like, I perfected it. It's fine. And then, yeah, there's 30 Irvings being
Yeah.
like, "Bleh."
Yeah. Unless they've all been wiped every time, so it doesn't really
Yeah,
matter.
we don't. I guess
Who
we don't know
knows?
how wiping works. Like, maybe you can actually delete that.
But but still have wonderfully have no idea ultimately what actually is going to happen. Like, unlike you know, in the Song of Ice and Fire fandom, where most of us feel like we pretty much know all the big reveals coming up by the hints, with this having a fucking clue, and that's great.
But there is a trajectory at least. Like, it's going somewhere, which is good.
Yeah, because right now we have the emotional goal of get Gemma back, but there is now a big goal of we must shut down Lumen.
We must take down.
I guess I forgot, but right now it's really secondary. Like, we haven't really talked. Like, I mean, Irving's mentioned Gemma, but it's not been the focus for a couple of episodes. Like, not this episode.
You're right. Like the one, like when he says, "Oh, all the help you've done," I was like, "You mean that one trip?"
When she said, "Maybe don't go through the go place," the only lead you had.
The one trip you did.
Again, time's weird. We have
who knows how much they've done. Anyway, great episode. Definitely wish still I had it all. I have to wait a week. Yeah.
Oh, gripping on with your toes.
I hate that I have to wait a week for this shit.
Yeah, this episode would be great in a binge, but God, it hurts weekly.
But then will we get the lovely water cooler theorizing stuff that they don't get to have?
Correct. We get videos.
Make sure to like and subscribe, because we're going to be doing this again next week. Of course, we don't have lives. We are permanent innies, and this is all we do. Help me.
I quite liked a few. I liked the Netflix blow was a great term, agreeing with you. One saying that your wife is so pretty. So they're talking to me, really. Or maybe they're talking
complimenting
to you.
you.
Who knows who they're talking to.
I am only property after all.
And I really love her style. Yes, I do too. I dress her myself.
Ew, you made me sound like a Barbie doll.
Sorry.
Subscribe for more of these.
Both
Both of them?